Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. In a forgotten corner of the world, where the boundary between dreams and waking life blurred beneath the twilight of old legends, there lay a relic shrouded in mystery, a mask carved from ebony wood and inlaid with silver filigree, passed down through generations by secretive hands and hidden away in dusty chests. The mask was said to reveal hidden worlds, realms where the forgotten, the magical, and the dangerous coexisted beyond the reach of ordinary eyes. Its legend was whispered in the low murmur of libraries, in the rustle of old manuscripts, and in the quiet confessions of those who believed that reality was more than it seemed. Evelyn Marston, an unassuming archivist at the town's historical museum, had always been drawn to the stories of lost civilizations and secret relics. Late one autumn afternoon, while cataloging a newly acquired collection of antique curiosities from a long-dissolved estate, she discovered a small leather-bound box tucked behind a stack of brittle maps. Inside, wrapped in a faded velvet cloth, was the mask. Its surface was etched with intricate symbols that seemed to shift in the flicker of candlelight, and its eyes, two hollow sockets, invited a silent, unspoken promise of revelations beyond the mundane world. Though hesitant at first, Evelyn felt an irresistible pull toward the artifact. Over the coming days, she pored over every scrap of lore in the museum's archives and local folklore. The more she learned, the more she became convinced that the mask was no mere decorative trinket, but a key that might unlock hidden portals to worlds unseen. One moonlit evening, unable to resist the lure of mystery, Evelyn cleaned and polished the mask in the solitude of her attic. With trembling hands, she slowly lifted it and, as if compelled by an invisible force, pressed it to her face. In an instant, the attic dissolved into swirling colors and kaleidoscopic patterns. The world around her melted away, and she found herself standing on a narrow path lined with silver trees whose leaves shimmered like stardust. A gentle breeze carried murmurs in a language both familiar and alien. In that surreal vision, Evelyn witnessed scenes that defied the logic of her everyday life. A bustling market where creatures of myth bartered in dreams, a silent grove where time stood still, and skies painted with hues that no mortal palette could replicate. Her heart pounded with wonder and terror in equal measure as the mask revealed to her the first glimpse of hidden worlds, worlds that existed alongside her own, waiting patiently for someone to see. After the vision faded, Evelyn removed the mask and returned to her attic, where reality reasserted itself with quiet normality. Yet she was irrevocably changed. The memory of that fleeting journey burned like embers in her mind. Determined to understand the mask's power, she began a quest for answers that led her into dusty libraries, obscure archives, and the secret corners of the internet where legends were preserved by those who dared to dream. She discovered that similar masks had been referenced in ancient texts, mystical objects used by seers and shamans to traverse the veil between worlds. Each account, though cloaked in allegory and myth, spoke of hidden realms where the laws of nature were rewritten. These worlds were as varied as they were dangerous, holding both untold beauty and peril for those who ventured within. Evelyn resolved to follow the mask's call once more. On a night when the wind carried an almost musical cadence and the moon shone with a luminous clarity, she prepared herself for a deliberate journey. In a secluded clearing near the edge of town, a place where ancient oaks whispered secrets, she lit a circle of candles. With a steady breath and her heart pounding like a drum, she placed the mask upon her face. Instantly, the familiar world faded away. Evelyn found herself standing on a cobblestone pathway that wound through an enchanted forest bathed in perpetual twilight. The trees, tall and solemn, bore leaves that glowed with an inner light. Ethereal creatures, half glimpsed, half imagined, darted between the trunks, their laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. Here, the air was alive with magic. Every step forward revealed hidden doorways and shimmering pools that reflected not the present, but visions of forgotten eras. As Evelyn ventured deeper, the path led her to a clearing where a great mirror-like lake lay still as glass. The water, dark and reflective, beckoned her closer. With cautious steps, she approached its edge and peered into its depths. In the lake's surface, she saw not her own reflection but shifting images, a montage of lives once lived, of moments lost to time. Faces of ancient kings and beggars, lovers entwined in fleeting passion, and warriors standing defiant against the tide of fate swam before her eyes. Each reflection told a story, and Evelyn felt a profound kinship with the souls captured in the silent water. It was as if the lake held the collective memory of a hidden world, urging her to remember that life was a tapestry woven from countless threads. In that moment, the mask revealed its deeper purpose, not merely to transport its wearer, but to connect them with the eternal pulse of the cosmos. On the far side of the enchanted forest, Evelyn stumbled upon a clearing where a gathering of beings held court. They were neither wholly human nor entirely ethereal, figures cloaked in shadows and light, bearing the wisdom of ages in their eyes. This mysterious assembly, which called itself the Council of Shadows, presided over the hidden realms. The council's leader, a tall, enigmatic figure with eyes that gleamed like molten silver, addressed her. "Welcome, traveler," he intoned, his voice both commanding and gentle. "You have crossed the threshold with the mask of revealing, and now you carry the burden of knowing what lies beneath the surface of existence. Our world, your world, are interlaced in a delicate balance. It is through eyes like yours, open to wonder and sorrow alike, that we keep the stories of old alive." For what seemed like hours, Evelyn sat among the council members, listening as they recounted the history of the hidden realms. They spoke of ancient conflicts between light and shadow, of love that transcended mortal boundaries, and of a great cosmic cycle that determined the fate of every soul. Their words, like fragments of a timeless song, filled her with both awe and a deep, lingering sadness for the ephemeral nature of life. The council warned Evelyn that her journey was far from over. To fully understand the masked power, she must undertake a series of trials within the hidden realms. Each trial would challenge her perceptions, test her resolve, and force her to confront both the beauty and the cruelty inherent in existence. The first trial led her into a labyrinth of shifting corridors within an ancient ruin, a maze where the walls themselves whispered forgotten lullabies and curses. In this labyrinth, she encountered apparitions of her own fears, reflections of doubts, regrets, and past sorrows that she had long buried. With each step, the mask allowed her to see the truth behind these illusions, teaching her that the hidden worlds were not merely a realm of wonder, but also a mirror reflecting the inner landscape of her own soul. The second trial took her to a towering cliff overlooking an endless void. Here, with the wind howling like a chorus of lost voices, she had to confront the idea of loss, the inevitability of parting, and the transient nature of every joy. In the face of the abyss, she wept for the future she might never have, and for the memories that were already fading. Yet in that sorrow, she discovered a spark of resilience, a promise that even in the darkest moments, hope could be born anew. As the trials wore on, the mask's true nature began to emerge. It was not only a portal to hidden worlds, but also a burden, an ever-present reminder that every revelation came with a price. With each vision, each secret revealed, Evelyn felt a part of herself slipping away, replaced by the cumulative weight of knowledge and sorrow. In a quiet moment, deep within a grove illuminated by bioluminescent flora, she encountered an ancient spirit who had once been a guardian of the mask. The spirit, his form shifting like smoke in the moonlight, spoke in riddles. To see is to remember, and to remember is to lose. The mask offers you all the hidden truths, yet every truth demands a sacrifice. You must choose what part of yourself you are willing to surrender in exchange for wisdom. Evelyn was torn. The allure of endless revelation tempted her with promises of eternal insight, yet she knew that every secret extracted from the hidden worlds would forever change her. The spirit's words haunted her dreams, and for many sleepless nights, she grappled with the cost of embracing such profound power. Standing at the crossroads between the hidden realms and the familiar world she once knew, Evelyn faced the ultimate decision. The Council of Shadows had offered her a chance to become one with the hidden worlds, to remain there forever as a chronicler of their secrets, bound by eternal wisdom but severed from the mortal realm. Alternatively, she could return to her world, carrying with her the burden of knowledge and the bittersweet memories of the hidden realms. In a moment of profound introspection beneath a sky painted with the hues of dawn, Evelyn realized that the true gift of the mask was not in endless revelation, but in the capacity to see the wonder in the everyday. The hidden worlds were beautiful, yes, and full of secrets, but they were also perilous, laden with the cost of eternal sorrow. With a heavy yet resolute heart, she chose to return to the world of the living, determined to share the wisdom she had gained, yet careful to preserve the fragile beauty of human experience. Emerging from the enchanted realms was like waking from a dream that had spanned lifetimes. The familiar sights and sounds of her small town greeted her as if no time had passed at all. Yet Evelyn knew that she was irrevocably changed. The mask, now resting in a secure box within her study, remained silent, a reminder of the hidden worlds that lay just beyond the veil of everyday life. Evelyn devoted herself to chronicling her experiences. She penned long, detailed accounts of the enchanted forests, the labyrinths of memory, and the councils of ethereal beings. Her writings, filled with both wonder and melancholy, soon became sought after by scholars, mystics, and anyone who yearned to glimpse the hidden tapestry of existence. She also founded a small society dedicated to preserving the delicate balance between revelation and loss, a community of kindred spirits who understood that true wisdom came not solely from knowing all secrets, but from cherishing the ephemeral beauty of life. In quiet gatherings by candlelight, they shared stories and recited ancient verses, ensuring that the legacy of the mask and the hidden worlds it revealed would never be forgotten. Years passed, and Evelyn grew older, her eyes forever reflecting the light of distant, unseen realms. The mask that had once opened doors to hidden worlds now lay dormant, its power resting until the day a new seeker, hungry for truth and tempered by compassion, would dare to wear it. In the twilight of her life, Evelyn would often sit by the window, gazing out at the ordinary world with a secret smile. She knew that just beyond the veil of everyday perception, the hidden worlds continued to thrive, a vibrant mosaic of memories, magic, and mystery. And in that eternal dance between the seen and unseen, every soul held a spark of the infinite. Thus, the tale of the mask that reveals hidden worlds lived on, a story of discovery, sacrifice, and the delicate art of balancing knowledge with the beauty of being human. For as long as there were those willing to listen to the whispers of the past and embrace the wonder of the unknown, the hidden realms would remain, ever waiting, just beyond the light of day. In every quiet moment, when dusk falls and the shadows lengthen, those who know the secret might catch a glimpse, a flash of silver filigree in a dusty chest, a soft glow in an ancient mirror. And remember that the world is far richer, far more mysterious than it ever seems. In the sleepy village of Ravenwood, where fog draped the narrow streets each dawn and dusk, an ancient bell hung from a crooked belfry on a ruined chapel. The bell was no ordinary instrument. It was said to toll when a soul was about to vanish from the world, a portent of a disappearance that defied logic and reason. For generations, the villagers had whispered that every time the bell's mournful chime echoed through the mist, someone would vanish without a trace. Whether taken by a mysterious force or swallowed by the shadows of fate, the toll signified that another life had been claimed by secrets beyond mortal ken. Its legend was woven into every conversation in Ravenwood, from the trembling recitations of elders to the hurried murmurs of frightened children. And though many dismissed it as superstition, a palpable dread lingered in the air whenever the bell tolled. Ravenwood was a town that wore its past on its tattered coat of many mysteries. Narrow cobblestone alleys, ancient oak trees, and dilapidated stone houses whispered stories of times when magic and misfortune walked hand in hand. The chapel, long abandoned and left to the encroaching ivy, had once been the heart of the village. Now its solitary bell, rusted by time, yet resonant with a spectral sound, served as a grim reminder of the unseen powers that haunted Ravenwood. On a cold November evening, when the sky was overcast and the wind carried a mournful tune, residents gathered in hushed clusters around flickering street lamps. In those whispered conversations, they recounted the inexplicable vanishing of a neighbor, a friend, or even a visiting traveler. Every disappearance was marked by the bell's toll, a solitary, deep note that seemed to pull at the very fabric of reality. It was on such an evening that Thomas Whitaker, a reserved school teacher with a quiet manner and curious eyes, experienced the first toll that would change his life forever. While returning home along the winding lane outside the village square, he heard it, a single sonorous chime that cut through the night like a knife. Thomas stopped dead in his tracks, heart pounding as he strained his ears. The sound resonated from the direction of the old chapel. At first he thought it might be the wind, but as he hurried toward the chapel, he noticed that the air around him seemed to tremble with an otherworldly energy. Reaching the chapel's broken doorway, Thomas beheld the bell swinging gently in the cold night air. In that moment, he recalled the ancient tales told by his grandmother. When the bell tolled, someone was about to disappear, and as he turned back toward the darkened road, a chill of foreboding coursed through his veins. The next morning, the town awoke to an unsettling silence. Mrs. Eleanor Price, a kindly widow known for her bright smile and generous heart, was nowhere to be found. In her modest cottage, dinner was left half prepared, and her knitting lay abandoned on a chair. Neighbors searched in vain, their eyes filled with disbelief and sorrow. Whispers spread like wildfire. Mrs. Price had vanished the night before, and the only sign was the lingering echo of the bell's toll. Thomas, troubled by his experience, began to document the strange events in his small leather-bound journal. He scribbled down every detail, the time of the bell, the silence that followed, and the inexplicable sense of loss that now gripped the town. He was not the only one disturbed. In hushed tones over cups of bitter tea, the villagers recalled previous instances. Lives abruptly ended with no explanation, only the haunting chime to mark their departure. Unsure whether these occurrences were the product of a collective delusion or something far more sinister, Thomas felt compelled to seek answers. With the cautious support of a few trusted friends, a local historian named Margaret Hensley and a retired policeman, Arthur Mills, he began to investigate the origins of the bell and the disappearances. Their research took them to the dusty archives of Ravenwood's small library, where ancient records hinted at a time when the village was founded by settlers fleeing persecution and when a bitter curse was cast upon the land. Among brittle, yellowed documents, they uncovered a folk tale that had long been dismissed as mere myth. It told of a pious woman who, in a moment of unspeakable grief after losing her child, had cursed a sacred bell to toll whenever the veil between life and death thinned. The curse, it was said, would claim a soul whenever darkness overwhelmed the light. Though the tale was shrouded in allegory, Thomas couldn't help but feel that its grim message echoed too closely with the events unfolding in Ravenwood. Margaret Hensley, with her keen mind and deep knowledge of local lore, led Thomas to the oldest residence of Ravenwood. In the flickering lamplight of a centuries-old inn, they listened as a weathered man recounted memories of his youth, a time when the bell's toll was a rare omen, yet always preceded tragedy. He spoke of a day when the village wept for a young lad who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and broken hearts. His words painted a picture of a curse that was as inexorable as fate itself. Thomas pored over every scrap of evidence, piecing together the timeline of disappearances that stretched back decades. The pattern was clear. Every time the bell tolled unexpectedly in the dead of night, a life was lost. The research not only deepened his conviction, but also filled him with dread. Was there any escape from this ancient curse? And if so, at what cost would the curse be undone? Determined to confront the mystery head-on, Thomas and his small band of allies decided to investigate the chapel itself. Under a starless sky, they crept through overgrown pathways and cracked stone walls until they reached the ruined sanctuary. Inside, amid shattered pews and faded murals of saints and sinners, they discovered an inscription etched into a large slab of stone behind the altar. The inscription, written in a language that was half Latin, half the archaic tongue of the old world, warned of the price of disturbing the curse. It spoke of the bell of sorrow, an instrument forged in grief and bound by ancient magic, destined to call forth the lost souls from their mortal bonds. The text warned that if one sought to break the curse, the tolling must cease, but that doing so would require a sacrifice, a surrender of something precious to the heart. The idea chilled Thomas to the core. What price would be paid to end this cycle of vanishing souls? And who among them could bear such a burden? Weeks passed as the investigation deepened, and the village braced for another ominous night. Thomas took every precaution, knowing that he might be forced to witness another disappearance. Then on a bitterly cold night, when the wind howled like a pack of spectral hounds, the bell began its toll once more. Its sound was lower, more resonant, and imbued with an intensity that set the very air trembling. This time, as the chime echoed across the deserted streets, a palpable silence descended over Ravenwood. Neighbors huddled in their homes, and even the ancient trees seemed to bow in sorrow. When morning came, it was revealed that another life had been claimed. A young mother, Miss Lydia Crane, had vanished without a trace. The grief that swept through the village was immeasurable. In her home, items of sentimental value lay untouched, and a photograph of her smiling with her child hung askew on the wall. The villagers, now united in despair and determination, gathered to demand answers. Their collective grief reached Thomas, whose heart ached for the lost and for the burden of the curse that fell upon them all. As despair mounted, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of an enigmatic figure, a wandering mystic named Seraphine, who had come to Ravenwood on whispers of the curse. Seraphine was known to many as a healer, but also as one who could commune with the unseen forces that governed fate. With eyes that shone like polished onyx and a presence both calming and formidable, she offered to help break the curse. Seraphine explained that the curse was bound by an ancient pact, a balance of sorrow and sacrifice. To silence the bell's dreadful toll, someone would have to offer a sacrifice that would appease the ancient grief embedded in the bell. This sacrifice was not necessarily one of blood, but of something deeply cherished, a memory, a promise, a piece of one's very soul. In a private meeting at the edge of the cemetery, She confided in Thomas, "If you wish to end this curse, you must confront the essence of loss. Only by embracing the pain of those who have vanished, and by letting go of a part of yourself, can you hope to silence the bell." Thomas, whose soul was already heavy with sorrow and responsibility, found himself at a crossroads. He had come to the chapel seeking answers, but now he was faced with a choice that threatened to strip him of the very hope he clung to. Could he make the ultimate sacrifice to break the cycle? Could he bear the weight of relinquishing something so dear that it might finally grant peace to the restless souls of Ravenwood? That fateful night, under a waning crescent moon and amid an oppressive silence, Thomas resolved to act. With Seraphine by his side, he returned to the ruined chapel. In the center of the sanctuary, beneath the inscription that spoke of the curse's origin, Thomas knelt before the ancient altar. He closed his eyes and allowed the memories of every lost soul to surge within him. The laughter of children now silenced, the gentle voices of friends and loved ones, the sorrow of lives unfulfilled. In that moment of profound vulnerability, Thomas offered a piece of his own heart, a cherished memory of his late mother, the gentle warmth of her embrace on a cold winter's day, a love that had sustained him through the years. As he whispered the sacred words taught by Seraphine, a soft light emanated from within him, intertwining with the ancient magic of the bell. The sound of the bell, so long a harbinger of despair, began to waver, its tones softening as if touched by a distant hope. For several agonizing minutes, time itself seemed to suspend as the forces of sorrow and sacrifice battled in an unseen struggle. Then, with a final, sonorous peal that resonated deep within the stone walls of the chapel, the bell fell silent. The oppressive weight that had haunted Ravenwood lifted, replaced by a fragile peace that hinted at the promise of new beginnings. In the days that followed, Ravenwood slowly began to heal. The disappearances ceased, and while the memory of those lost remained etched in the hearts of the villagers, the relentless tolling of the cursed bell became nothing more than a distant echo. Thomas, forever changed by the sacrifice he had made, dedicated himself to preserving the memory of the vanished and to ensuring that the lesson of the bell would not be forgotten. He continued to write in his journal, recording the stories of those whose lives had been claimed by the curse, and he shared his experiences with anyone who would listen. In time, his chronicles became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of ancient sorrow, hope could be reborn through the courage to sacrifice and the strength to remember. Seraphine, too, left her mark on Ravenwood, becoming a guardian of the town's newfound peace. Under her gentle guidance, the villagers began to honor the past without succumbing to its despair. They lit candles on the anniversaries of the disappearances and planted memorial gardens where the bell once tolled, a living symbol of remembrance and renewal. Years later, as the seasons turned and the scars of old grief slowly faded into memory, the ruined chapel stood as a quiet monument on the outskirts of Ravenwood. The bell, now silent and overgrown with ivy, remained suspended in the belfry, a relic of a time when sorrow and magic intermingled. Yet on still nights when the wind whispered through the trees and the moon cast a pale glow over the land, those who listened closely swore they could hear a faint, echoing chime, a reminder that some legends never truly fade. Thomas's journal, preserved and passed down through generations, became a treasured heirloom in Ravenwood, a chronicle of loss, sacrifice, and the enduring power of hope. It served as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human heart could find the strength to break curses and mend the delicate balance between life and death. Thus, the story of the bell that tolled when someone disappeared became woven into the tapestry of Ravenwood's legacy, a timeless tale of how grief can transform into hope, and how the echoes of loss may one day give way to the promise of new beginnings. In the end, The ancient bell's silent vigil stands as both a warning and a blessing, a reminder that every disappearance leaves behind a story, every toll carries a burden of memory, and every heart has the capacity to heal if only it dares to embrace the beauty of sacrifice. In a forgotten corner of the world, where dusk lingers long after the sun has set and the wind sings of lost eras, there exists an ancient door. No ordinary portal of wood or metal. This door is wrought of dark iron and ancient stone, its surface adorned with carvings of spectral faces and cryptic symbols. For generations, the people of the nearby village of Black Hollow have whispered its name in reverence and fear. It is said that the door only opens for the dead, those who have departed this mortal coil, or perhaps those whose hearts have grown so heavy with sorrow that death's touch seems inevitable. Its legend is woven into the fabric of local lore, a threshold between the world of the living and the realms that lie beyond, a passage reserved solely for souls who have transcended life. Many have tried to find it, and few have seen it move. Yet when the veil between worlds grows thin, the door creaks open on nights of solemnity, revealing mysteries that no mortal mind can fully comprehend. Daniel Harlow was a quiet man with eyes that held the weight of unanswered questions. Growing up on the outskirts of Black Hollow, he had heard the legends of the door since childhood, stories told by his grandmother in hushed tones by the flickering light of a kerosene lamp. Although he had always dismissed them as mere superstition, a persistent curiosity began to stir in his heart as he matured. There was something magnetic in the idea of a threshold that beckoned only to those who were lost between life and death. One autumn evening, as a chill wind stirred the amber leaves and a strange mist began to curl around the crooked lanes, Daniel felt an inexplicable pull toward the ancient stone wall at the edge of the village cemetery. There, partially hidden by climbing ivy and the passage of time, was the door, a weathered relic that had long been overlooked by the busy souls of the living. Its presence was as subtle as it was profound, and that night, Daniel resolved to learn its secrets. In the days that followed, Daniel delved into every scrap of local lore he could find. In the dusty pages of old diaries and brittle letters preserved in the town's archive, he discovered fragments of history, accounts of spectral figures gliding silently through moonlit graveyards, of mournful laments carried on the wind, and of a door that would silently swing open as the departed approached. Elderly villagers spoke of the door with a mix of fear and awe. "It's not for us," they'd warn in a trembling voice. "It opens only for those who have crossed over, those who carry the mark of eternal sorrow." Intrigued and unnerved in equal measure, Daniel sought out the village's oldest resident, a stooped woman known as Mistress Verity, whose eyes gleamed with memories of bygone days. Over cups of bitter tea in her creaking cottage, she recounted the tale in a voice both soft and sorrowful. "I remember a night many years past," she murmured, "when I saw a figure in a tattered dress approach the door. As soon as they neared, the iron barrier groaned open, and for a fleeting moment, the figure passed through as if carried away on a silent breeze. Some say it was the spirit of a lost soul seeking final rest. Others believe the door calls those who are fated to join the realm beyond." Her words, laden with personal grief and ancient wisdom, set Daniel's mind aflame with determination. With the harvest moon rising high and full, casting a pale light over Black Hollow, Daniel decided that the coming night was when the door might reveal itself. Clad in a worn coat and armed with nothing more than a lantern and his steady resolve, he made his way toward the cemetery. The cold air was heavy with the scent of earth and decay, and as he walked the narrow, winding path between moss-laden tombstones, every rustle of the wind and every creak of an ancient headstone seemed imbued with hidden meaning. At last he reached the ivy-clad wall where the door was set. The structure appeared unchanged by time, an unyielding slab of dark metal and stone, its carvings even more striking in the silvery glow of the moon. Daniel's heart pounded as he drew near. He paused, listening. The only sound was the gentle whisper of the night, until, as if in response to his presence, a low, mournful creak echoed from within the door. Slowly, inexorably, it began to swing open on rusted hinges. For a heartbeat, Daniel froze, caught between terror and awe. The opening was not wide, and beyond it lay nothing but a shroud of impenetrable darkness. Yet even in that darkness, he sensed movement, ethereal silhouettes drifting in silence, their forms blurred and indistinct, as if composed of moonlight and memory. The door, it seemed, was indeed a threshold, one that beckoned only to those who were no longer among the living. Overwhelmed by a mixture of dread and unquenchable curiosity, Daniel hesitated on the threshold. He recalled Mistress Verity's words, that the door only opened for the dead. Yet in that moment, a strange thought took root in his mind. What if the door could also reveal to the living the hidden truths of death? What if, by witnessing that which lay beyond, he could gain an understanding of the fragile boundary between life and the afterlife? Trembling, he stepped forward. The lantern's feeble glow revealed a narrow passage that stretched into darkness, a corridor lined with ancient stones inscribed with names and dates long forgotten. As he advanced, the temperature dropped sharply, and a profound silence enveloped him. A silence so deep it seemed to resonate with the echoes of countless lost souls. In the depths of the passage, Daniel's lantern flickered as if struggling against an unseen force. And then, in the stillness, a voice, a mere whisper, spoke his name. Daniel! It was a sound filled with longing and sorrow, an echo from a realm he could barely comprehend. His heart raced, but he pressed on, driven by an inexorable need to see what lay beyond the door. At the end of the passage, the corridor opened into a vast, dimly lit chamber. Here the air shimmered with an otherworldly quality, and ghostly luminescence revealed figures drifting silently along walls made of ancient stone. It was as if he had stepped into another world, a realm not governed by the laws of mortal time, but by an eternal, melancholic twilight. The chamber was filled with a soft murmur of voices, whispers of stories, regrets, and forgotten joys. Daniel realized that each figure he saw carried with them the weight of a lifetime of memories, now suspended in a timeless existence. There were those who appeared joyful, as though at peace. Others, their faces etched with sorrow, seemed burdened by unfinished tales. And all around him, the quiet cadence of the departed spoke of lives lost and the inexorable passage of time. In the center of the chamber stood an ornate pedestal upon which rested an ancient, leather-bound ledger. Its pages were filled with names that spanned centuries, written in delicate, faded script. Daniel understood then that this was a record of souls who had passed through the door, each name a testament to a life once lived, now forever inscribed in the tapestry of the forgotten. As Daniel wandered further into the realm, a figure emerged from the shadows, a spectral woman draped in a flowing, tattered gown. Her eyes, luminous and filled with both sadness and wisdom, fixed upon him. "You have come," she whispered, her voice a gentle caress that resonated through the silent chamber. "I am Eleonora, a keeper of the memories here. Few mortals dare to cross our threshold. Why do you seek the realm of the dead?" Daniel's throat constricted with emotion. I seek understanding," he managed to reply. "I wish to know what lies beyond, to learn the secrets of those who have gone before us." Eleanor's form shimmered as she moved gracefully among the drifting figures. "The dead do not speak as we do, for they are bound by memories and the silence of eternity. But here, in this place, every whisper, every name, holds a fragment of truth. If you are to learn, you must listen, not only with your ears, but with your heart. For what felt like hours, Daniel sat with Eleonora, absorbing the quiet stories carried on the murmurs of the departed. She showed him the ledger, revealing the chronicles of lives filled with love, tragedy, triumph, and regret. Each name was accompanied by a story, a spark of emotion that had transcended the mortal coil. In that surreal conversation, Daniel learned that death was not an end, but a transformation, a passage to a realm where the essence of a person lived on in the collective memory of time. The revelations of the realm weighed heavily on Daniel's soul. Though he had ventured seeking answers, he now found himself burdened with truths that were both profound and painful. The door had shown him the nature of existence beyond life, a world where joy and sorrow were intermingled, and where every life, no matter how brief, left an indelible mark on the fabric of eternity. Eleonora, with eyes that held the sorrow of countless centuries, spoke softly. Knowledge comes at a price. You have seen what few living souls ever witness. The door you pass through will forever change you. You will bear these memories with you, an echo of the departed within your very being. Daniel felt a chill run through him as the weight of her words settled upon his heart. He had hoped to gain insight, but the revelation was as much a curse as it was a gift. To carry the memories of the dead was to be haunted by their eternal whispers, a constant reminder that life was fleeting and that every soul was destined to fade into memory. Standing at the threshold of the chamber, Daniel knew that the time had come to decide whether he would remain in that spectral realm or attempt to return to the world of the living. Eleanor's voice, both tender and firm, urged him to consider his choice carefully. Returning will not erase what you have seen, nor the burden you now bear, she said. But the living world may offer you a chance to share these truths, to help others remember the beauty of every fleeting moment. Stay, and you will become one with the forgotten, forever lost in the twilight of memories. Go and carry the legacy of the dead into the realm of the living. Torn between the allure of eternal knowledge and the desperate longing to reclaim a semblance of mortal life, Daniel closed his eyes. The silence of the chamber pressed in around him, filled with the voices of countless souls yearning to be remembered. At last he opened his eyes, determination mingling with sorrow. I choose to return, he whispered. I will bear the memories of the departed, and through them, I will help the living understand the fragile beauty of life. With Eleanor's gentle guidance, Daniel retraced his steps along the narrow passage until the chamber's ethereal light began to fade, replaced once more by the cold, tangible reality of the world of the living. The ancient door, the silent sentinel between realms, slowly closed behind him with a resonant clang that echoed into the night. Back in Black Hollow, the village seemed both the same and irrevocably changed. The stars shone a little dimmer, and the wind carried a whisper of sorrow that Daniel could no longer ignore. Though he resumed his daily life, every moment was now suffused with the memories of those lost souls, a persistent murmur that reminded him of the delicate balance between life and death. In his modest home, Daniel began to record his experiences. His journal overflowed with the names and stories he had encountered in the realm of the departed. His once ordinary existence transformed into a mission to honor the legacy of every soul that had passed through that mysterious door, and to remind the living that each life, no matter how transient, was a precious part of the eternal tapestry. Years passed, and Daniel became known throughout Black Hollow as a keeper of memories, a quiet, introspective man whose eyes hinted at depths beyond mortal understanding. He shared his stories with those who would listen, urging them to cherish every moment and to remember that death was not an end, but a transformation. In the local school, children learned of the ancient door not as a portal to terror, but as a symbol of the cycle of life, where every ending paved the way for a new beginning. On moonlit nights, when the wind rustled through the village and the stars blinked in silent approval. Some claimed to see a faint glow near the old cemetery wall. Whether it was the echo of that ancient threshold or simply the play of light on stone, the door remained a part of the landscape, a reminder that the boundary between the living and the dead was ever fragile, ever shifting. In the twilight of his years, Daniel often returned to the ivy-clad wall where the door once stood ajar. Though it now appeared as an ordinary part of the crumbling stone wall, deep within him he knew that its power endured. Every so often a chill would run down his spine, and he would swear that he heard the faintest whisper, a greeting from Eleonora, or perhaps the gentle murmur of countless souls beckoning him to remember. And so, the legend of the door that only opens for the dead lived on, a tale of mystery, sorrow, and redemption. For as long as the living walked the earth, there would be those who carried the memories of the departed in their hearts. And in the silent vigil of the ancient door, the threshold between life and death remained ever open, a promise that every soul, in its own time, would be remembered. Thus concludes the chronicle of a door that opens only for the dead, a passage between realms, a keeper of secrets, and a timeless reminder that the line between life and death is not a barrier, but a bridge, connecting every mortal heart to the eternal tapestry of memory. In the deepest heart of an ancient woodland, where the light wavered between shadow and gold, there lay a trail few had ever dared to follow. It was not marked on any modern map, nor could its existence be confirmed by any chart of the known world. Local lore spoke of a forest trail, one that wound its way through towering oaks and whispering pines, leading not to a destination of mortal design, but to realms forgotten by time itself. These hidden domains were said to be repositories of lost memories, ancient magic, and secrets too potent for the waking world. It was here, beneath a sky stained with twilight and mystery, that the journey of one curious soul would begin. Eerie of Vermont was no stranger to the lure of enigmas. A scholar of myth and an avid seeker of truths hidden behind legends, she had spent her formative years poring over dusty tomes and faded manuscripts that hinted at worlds beyond the mundane. Yet nothing had prepared her for the night when the winds carried a voice, a gentle susurration that seemed to speak directly to her heart. It was the sound of leaves rustling with ancient secrets, the murmuring of water along unseen brooks, and the distant echo of a forgotten song. One crisp autumn evening, as the last embers of daylight surrendered to a deepening dusk, Arya discovered a brittle, hand-drawn map tucked inside an old volume at the university library. Its lines were delicate and its script nearly illegible, but one phrase was boldly inscribed: "Follow the trail where time forgets itself and enter the realm where dreams are born anew." The map depicted a winding path beginning at the edge of her hometown, a modest hamlet on the border of civilization, and disappearing into an expanse of wild forest. With a racing heart and a determination fueled by years of yearning for adventure, Arya resolved that she would follow the map's silent invitation. Before dawn, Arya packed her satchel with essentials: a journal, a worn leather-bound notebook, a compass that had once belonged to her grandfather, and provisions for a journey into the unknown. With the mysterious map clutched in her hand, she set out from her familiar world. Every step away from the well-trodden roads felt like a step toward a destiny written in the language of dreams. The map led her along a narrow footpath that twisted through dew-laden meadows and over mossy banks. It was as if nature itself had conspired to cloak the trail in secrecy. Wildflowers bowed as she passed, and the rustle of the wind through the tall grass seemed to murmur her name. As the sun rose and painted the sky in hues of pink and lavender, Arya felt that she was not merely walking, but being gently guided by forces unseen toward something far greater than herself. At the threshold of the ancient forest, the air grew cooler and the light dimmer, as if the sun's brilliance was being absorbed by the very soul of the woodland. The trees, enormous and venerable, arched overhead to form a living cathedral of intertwined branches. Their leaves shimmered with a strange luminescence, and every footstep upon the soft earth stirred whispers from a time long past. Arya stepped onto the forest trail, her senses immediately heightened. The ground beneath her feet was soft with a carpet of fallen leaves and fern fronds, and the scent of damp earth and wild pine filled her lungs. As she ventured deeper, the path became less defined, a subtle suggestion of direction rather than a clearly marked route. Occasionally, a narrow winding lane would fork unexpectedly, its divergent ways obscured by swirling mists and half-forgotten echoes. Yet with the map as her guide and her inner compass attuned to the forest's heartbeat, Arya pressed on. The forest was not a place of passive beauty. It was alive, dynamic, and full of gentle tests for the traveler. Early in her journey, Arya encountered a babbling brook whose waters glowed with an otherworldly light. At its edge stood a stone bridge, ancient and crumbling, guarded by intricate carvings that told the story of a long-forgotten civilization. The crossing was slippery and uncertain, or a trial by nature meant to test the resolve of those who dared to venture further. As she carefully traversed the bridge, the murmur of the water seemed to grow into distinct words, a riddle of loss and hope, urging her to remember that every ending gave way to a new beginning. With each step, she learned that the forest demanded both courage and humility, urging her to listen, not only with her ears but with her soul. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, and sometimes a sudden rustle in the underbrush made her heart skip a beat. Yet every trial she met filled her with a quiet confidence, as though the very elements of the forest were acknowledging her determination. After days that blurred seamlessly into one another, the forest began to change. The trees took on hues that defied description. Deep indigos mingled with silver and gold, and the air was thick with a palpable magic. At the end of a narrow winding passage, Arya stumbled upon a clearing that defied time. Here the forest gave way to a vast, ethereal expanse, a realm where the forgotten memories of the world lay scattered like stardust upon the ground. In this hidden veil, time itself seemed to have lost meaning. Arya wandered through ancient groves where spectral lights floated in the air like gentle fireflies, illuminating fragments of memories long lost. She saw visions of people from bygone eras, lovers embraced in secret, warriors standing proud on the edge of battle, wise elders sharing silent wisdom, and she sensed that these were the souls of those whose stories had been left behind. Each whispered tale, carried by a breeze or etched into the very stone of a crumbling monument, beckoned her to learn and remember. As she sat by a small, crystal-clear pool that mirrored the shifting skies above, Arya recorded her impressions in her journal. Every word she penned felt imbued with magic, a magic that promised that the forgotten realms were not merely relics of the past, but living chapters in the ongoing story of the world. Deep within the realm of lost memories, as twilight melted into a timeless night, Arya sensed that she was not alone. From between the trunks of ancient trees emerged a figure both luminous and enigmatic, a guardian of this secret domain. Clad in robes woven from the mist and leaves, the figure introduced himself as Thalin, the keeper of the forgotten. His eyes, reflective as a polished amber, held the wisdom of countless ages. "Welcome, traveler," Thalin intoned in a voice that resonated like the distant tolling of a bell. "You have followed the trail with a heart unburdened by fear, and now you stand at the threshold of realms forgotten by the march of time. Here, every soul that has been lost finds its echo, and every memory, no matter how faint, is given a chance to live once more." Thalin explained that the forest trail was a bridge between the mortal world and these enchanted realms, places where the past and the present converge to create new possibilities. He warned Arya that the journey ahead would demand not only courage but also the willingness to confront her own hidden truths. In forgotten realms, he said softly, the secrets of your own heart may be revealed, and only by accepting them can you truly embrace the magic that lies beyond. Under Thalin's guidance, Arya ventured deeper into the forgotten realms. She encountered relics of ancient civilizations, ruined temples, statues veiled in ivy, and inscriptions that glowed faintly in the twilight. In a ruined amphitheater where the voices of old still echoed, she discovered a mosaic depicting the story of a once great kingdom that had vanished without a trace. Each piece of the mosaic was a fragment of memory, a glimpse into a world that had thrived long before the present age. As she pieced together the stories of these lost realms, Arya began to understand that every civilization, no matter how illustrious, was destined to fade into memory. Yet in their fading, they left behind a legacy, lessons, dreams, and echoes of beauty that could transcend time itself. In quiet moments, when the mist cleared and the air grew still, she would hear the soft, sorrowful lullabies of ancient bards, their melodies carrying the weight of joy and regret. Through these experiences, Arya learned that the Forgotten Realms were not merely a repository for lost history. They were also a mirror reflecting the innermost parts of the soul. Each vision, each whispered secret, challenged her to confront her own past, the dreams she had abandoned, the love she had lost, and the parts of herself that had been left behind in the rush of life. And as she listened to the voices of the past, she began to find solace in the notion that even forgotten memories could hold the power to transform the present. The deeper Arya journeyed, the more the boundaries between the forgotten realms and her own heart blurred. At a crossroads marked by an ancient archway entwined with living vines, Thalin presented her with a choice, a decision that would determine the course of her destiny. He revealed that the trail she had followed was not merely a path through a physical forest, but a pilgrimage of the spirit. Before her lay two divergent paths, one that would lead her back to the familiar world of mortal life, carrying with it the wisdom of the forgotten, and another that would draw her irrevocably into the enchanted domains, a realm where she could dwell among the memories of the ages, forever a part of the eternal tapestry. Your heart holds the key, Thalin murmured. To return is to keep the flame of memory burning in your world, to share what you have learned and honor the legacy of those who came before. To remain here is to become one with the forgotten, a guardian of these timeless secrets, but forever separated from the fleeting beauty of mortal life. Arya wrestled with the enormity of the decision. The allure of eternal discovery tugged at her soul, yet the thought of leaving behind the world she loved, the laughter of friends, the warmth of sunlight, and the gentle cadence of everyday life, weighed heavily upon her heart. In the quiet solitude of that ancient archway, with the stars as silent witnesses, she realized that her journey had changed her irrevocably. The choice was not one of escape, but of transformation. After a long, reflective night beneath the silent gaze of the moon, Arya made her choice. With a steady heart and a mind at peace with its own truths, she decided to embrace the Forgotten Realms fully, if only for a time. She would not sever her ties with the mortal world altogether. Rather, she would serve as a bridge between the two, carrying the wisdom of the past into the present and offering hope to those who had lost their way. With Thalin's blessing and guidance, Arya crossed the threshold. The transition was both wondrous and overwhelming, a cascade of vivid memories, luminous visions, and the soft embrace of voices from ages long past. She found herself in a realm of endless twilight, where time flowed like a gentle river and every shadow whispered a secret of lost dreams. Here the air shimmered with enchantment, and the very earth pulsed with the heartbeat of forgotten legends. In this realm, Arya encountered souls who had chosen to remain among the echoes of history, keepers of ancient lore, poets of bygone eras, and artists whose creations had transcended mortal life. Together, they wove a tapestry of stories, reviving lost traditions and rekindling the embers of dreams that had nearly been extinguished. In the warm glow of everlasting dusk, Arya discovered that the Forgotten Realms were not a prison of isolation, but a sanctuary of profound beauty and quiet understanding. Years passed, or perhaps mere moments, in the timeless flow of the Forgotten Realms. Arya became both a guardian and a chronicler, traversing the hidden paths and recording the secrets of civilizations that had long faded from memory. Her words, inscribed in scrolls and etched upon living stone, carried the lessons of the ages back to the world of the living. In quiet moments, when travelers in the mortal realm chanced upon the edge of the ancient forest, they would speak in reverent whispers of a trail that led to realms where time itself remembered its own mysteries. And so, the legend of the forest trail endured, a symbol of hope, transformation, and the eternal dance between the seen and unseen. The path, ever shifting yet constant in its allure, beckoned new seekers with the promise that every step taken in pursuit of forgotten realms was also a step toward discovering one's true self. In the annals of myth and memory, the story of Arya and the Enchanted Trail became a timeless testament to the power of courage, the beauty of lost dreams, and the enduring magic of the natural world. For as long as ancient trees whispered secrets to the wind, and the earth held the echoes of 1,000 bygone eras, the forest trail would remain, a silent, mystical passage to realms where the forgotten lived on, and where every soul had a story waiting to be remembered. Thus ends the chronicle of a forest trail that leads to forgotten realms, a journey of discovery, heartbreak, and transcendence, where the boundaries of time and memory blur into a single, eternal path. In a time when legends were etched in blood and whispered by dying men, there existed a ring of unmatched beauty and terrible power. Forged by a heartbroken alchemist in the fires of vengeance and despair, the ring was meant to be a symbol of eternal life. But its creator, consumed by grief over the loss of a beloved, had cursed it in his anguish. It was said that whoever wore this ring would be granted immortality, a gift that in truth was a curse, for life without end came at the cost of unending sorrow, isolation, and the slow erosion of one's humanity. Over centuries, the ring passed from hand to hand, each bearer unaware of its true nature until the years wore on. Its history was shrouded in mystery, a whispered rumor in ancient courts, a dark omen among secret societies, a relic hidden away in forgotten chests. And now, as fate would have it, the cursed ring was about to change the life of a man named Edward Halloway. Edward was an unremarkable archivist in a sleepy coastal town, a man of quiet routine, more at home among dusty ledgers and brittle manuscripts than in the bright glare of modern life. One rainy afternoon, while cataloging the belongings of a recently deceased distant relative in the attic of an old estate, he uncovered a small, velvet-lined wooden box. Inside, nestled amid faded letters and a tarnished cameo, lay an exquisite ring. Its band was wrought of silver, set with a single deep red gemstone that glowed faintly in the dim light. Drawn by an inexplicable allure, Edward slipped the ring onto his finger. At that very moment, a shiver ran up his spine, as if the cold touch of death itself had brushed against him. Unbeknownst to him, the ring had found its next host, and with its quiet activation, a curse was set into motion, a curse that would bind him to a life without end. In the days that followed, Edward noticed subtle changes in himself. A persistent vitality filled his limbs, a newfound sharpness of mind and memory that made his work seem effortless. Friends marveled at his unyielding energy and the way he seemed to recover from even the slightest illness with supernatural speed. At first, he embraced these gifts as miraculous blessings. Who wouldn't want to escape the clutches of mortal frailty? Yet as the weeks turned into months, Edward began to notice peculiarities that he could not explain. The ring, once a beautiful trinket, now felt heavy upon his finger, a weight that pressed against his soul. Late at night, in the solitude of his modest apartment, he would catch faint whispers carried on the wind, murmuring words that seemed both seductive and foreboding. The promise of eternal life, it seemed, had come with a price he was only beginning to understand. At first, Edward dismissed the disquieting sensations as mere figments of an overactive imagination. But as time passed, the ring's curse began to reveal its true nature. He watched in horror as his peers aged, their faces marked by time and loss, while his own appearance remained forever unaltered. Weddings, funerals, and celebrations became painful reminders of the relentless march of time, events he was forced to witness without ever aging himself. Loneliness seeped into his bones. Loved ones, friends, and even fleeting acquaintances slipped away, leaving him behind as an eternal observer. The once cherished promise of immortality had transformed into a prison. Night after night, Edward lay awake, listening to the soft, melancholic whispers that emanated from the ring, voices that spoke of ancient sorrows and unhealed wounds. They told him stories of past bearers who had suffered unimaginable grief, a litany of souls bound by the same cruel destiny. Desperate to understand his fate, Edward turned to the dusty tomes of his local library, poring over occult manuscripts and ancient legends. He discovered fragmented accounts of the ring's origins, a tale of love, loss, and a curse that echoed through the centuries. The ring was no ordinary artifact. It was a repository of memories and regrets, each bearing its own tragedy. Driven by both fear and curiosity, Edward embarked on a journey that spanned decades. He traveled to crumbling castles in Eastern Europe, ancient monasteries in the mountains of Tibet, and secret archives hidden in the heart of old cities. Everywhere he went, whispers followed him, a chorus of voices from the past that warned of the inevitable torment of living beyond one's time. In a forgotten monastery, a wise but aged monk told him, "Immortality is not a gift, but a sentence. To live without end is to bear the weight of every sorrow ever known. You may live forever, but you shall never live truly." Those words haunted Edward as he witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of civilization, and the endless cycle of human joy and despair. In his long, solitary wanderings, Edward encountered others who had been touched by similar curses, immortal beings, cursed with eternal existence, but condemned to an existence devoid of renewal. There was Isabella, a once radiant woman who had lost her family and her youth centuries ago, whose eyes reflected the depth of eternal grief, and Marcus, a former scholar who had sacrificed his humanity in a futile bid for knowledge, now wandering as a silent specter among the ruins of his past. These encounters, brief and bittersweet, offered Edward fleeting moments of camaraderie. Together, they shared their stories in hushed voices beneath starlit skies, each one a reminder that immortality, far from being a blessing, was a lonely, ceaseless march through the corridors of memory and regret. Their conversations were filled with bitter laughter, shared sorrow, and a longing for the finality of death, a release that would never come. As centuries passed like seasons in an eternal twilight, Edward's spirit grew weary. He began to see immortality not as a triumph over time, but as an endless burden. The world around him changed. Cities rose and fell, technology advanced, and the human race evolved. But he remained a constant, a relic trapped in a past that could never be reclaimed. The ring, once a symbol of eternal promise, now served as a constant reminder of all that he had lost. The chance to love without grief, to live without the ceaseless torment of watching others fade away. haunted by the faces of those he once loved and the echo of laughter that now only existed in memory. Edward retreated from the world. He sought solace in solitude, wandering remote landscapes and abandoned ruins, trying to find a corner of the earth where the curse might be forgotten. Yet no matter where he went, the whispers followed him, voices of the past merging with the present, each one a fragment of a life he could never reclaim. In the depths of his despair, a spark of defiance ignited within Edward. He resolved to seek out a way to break the curse, to rid himself of the ring, and finally join the ranks of the departed. His search led him to ancient rituals, hidden temples, and secret societies that claimed to possess the knowledge to reverse even the darkest of curses. One fateful night, in a crumbling temple hidden within a dense jungle, Edward encountered a mysterious priestess named Serafina. Her eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to pierce the veil of time. The curse of the ring is bound to the sorrow of its creator, she explained in a voice as soft as a lullaby, yet imbued with undeniable power. To break it, you must confront the source of that grief. A journey not only through the forgotten histories of the ring, but also into the depths of your own soul. Together, they embarked on a perilous quest to unearth the secrets of the ring's origin. They deciphered ancient inscriptions, traveled to the ruins of lost civilizations, and uncovered the tragic tale of the alchemist whose broken heart had forged the cursed relic. In the flickering light of forgotten temples and beneath the canopy of ancient trees, Edward faced truths he had long avoided. The realization that his longing for immortality was inseparable from his fear of oblivion, and that the curse was a mirror reflecting his own internal despair. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Edward and Serafina prepared to perform a ritual of release, a final, desperate attempt to sever the bond between him and the ring. In a circle of ancient stones beneath a blood-red moon, they recited incantations and invoked the spirits of those who had suffered before. The air crackled with magic as the ring pulsed with a light both blinding and sorrowful. In that charged moment, Edward reached deep within himself, confronting the darkest corners of his soul. He wept for the lives he had lost, for the love that had slipped through his fingers, and for the endless torment of unyielding existence. The ring, as if listening to his lament, began to vibrate, its glow intensifying. For a fleeting instant, hope flickered in his heart, a hope that he might finally be free. But as the ritual reached its climax, a terrible truth emerged. The curse was not a simple spell to be undone. It was woven into the very fabric of his being. The ring's power was eternal because it was fueled by the unending sorrow of a heart that refused to let go. In that moment of catharsis, Edward understood that the curse was both a punishment and a part of him, a reminder that immortality, in its cruelest form, was an inescapable destiny. In the aftermath of the ritual, the ring's glow dimmed, and the relentless whispers subsided into a mournful lullaby. Though the curse had not been broken, Edward felt a profound shift within himself. He had come to understand that immortality was not a path to redemption, but a journey that demanded acceptance, a choice to embrace both the beauty and the sorrow of endless life. He began to document his experiences, penning a chronicle of the centuries he had witnessed, a tapestry of love, loss, triumph, and despair. His writings, though tinged with melancholy, became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Through his words, Edward sought to reconcile the eternal with the ephemeral, to find meaning in the endless procession of days and nights. With Serafina's gentle guidance, he forged a new existence, one not defined solely by the curse of the ring, but by the wisdom gleaned from a lifetime of joy and heartbreak. He traveled far and wide, offering solace to others who bore the weight of grief, and in quiet moments he would gaze upon the ring, a bittersweet reminder of both his suffering and the lessons it had taught him. As the decades melted into centuries, Edward became known not as a monster cursed with unending life, but as a guardian of memories, a keeper of the stories that time had nearly forgotten. His once lamenting heart transformed into a beacon of understanding, and his solitary wanderings took on a purpose: to preserve the echoes of lives that had flickered out long ago, ensuring that the beauty of mortal existence would not be lost in the shadow of immortality. He established secret sanctuaries where the lost could find comfort, gathering others who shared his burden or his gift. In hushed circles, beneath starlit skies, he recounted the lessons of love and loss, urging his listeners to cherish every fleeting moment, for even the most ephemeral life was precious. Though he would never be free of the ring's curse, Edward learned to embrace his destiny as the eternal witness to the ever-changing tapestry of human experience. In the twilight of time, when the echoes of empires and the laughter of youth had faded into legend, Edward's presence endured, a solitary figure roaming the vast expanse of history, forever bound by a ring of endless sorrow. His eyes, filled with the weight of countless lifetimes, shone with a quiet acceptance of his fate. The cursed ring remained on his finger, a constant, bittersweet reminder that immortality, for all its allure, came with the price of perpetual solitude. Yet in his unending journey, Edward found a strange sort of solace. He became the living repository of history, a guardian of memories that would never truly die. And in every whispered secret, every story he shared, the curse of the ring transformed from a burden into a legacy. A lesson that the true value of life lay not in its length, but in the depth of every moment experienced. Thus the tale of the cursed ring lives on, a story of eternal sorrow, enduring hope, and the inexorable passage of time. And as long as the stars continue to burn in the night sky, there will be one who walks the earth forever, a silent witness to the fleeting beauty of mortal life, forever marked by a ring that curses its wearer with immortality. In the small town of Redmarsh, where the days were gentle and the nights whispered of old legends, there was an unspoken fear, a dread of the unknown that lay beyond the horizon. For centuries, the townsfolk had spoken in hushed tones of a storm that, once unleashed, would never cease. It was said that long ago a curse had been born of heartbreak and betrayal, and with it a tempest was set in motion, an eternal deluge destined to transform lives forever. No one truly believed it could come to pass, until the day the sky darkened in a way that defied every law of nature. It began subtly. Over several weeks, the clouds above Redmarsh gathered like a restless army. At first, the changes were barely noticeable. A tinge of charcoal replacing the usual cerulean blue, a faint murmur of wind where there had once been calm. But as autumn deepened, a palpable tension filled the air. Farmers halted their work in the fields, and shopkeepers shuttered their windows, as if bracing for an unseen assault. In the heart of town, young Mara Ellison, an inquisitive journalist with a knack for uncovering hidden truths, noticed that even nature seemed to hold its breath. Late one evening, while recording the slow descent of dusk from her attic window, she saw flashes of lightning that split the sky without a sound. The phenomenon was inexplicable, and as Mara scribbled frantic notes in her journal, a single thought echoed in her mind. This was the harbinger of something monumental. The local elders spoke of legends passed down from generation to generation. They recalled tales of an ancient curse, woven into the fabric of Redmarsh by a scorned sorcerer whose heart had been broken by a betrayal so deep it shattered his soul. In his anguish, he had invoked a spell that turned his pain into a force of nature, a storm that would, in time, reclaim the land and drown all memories of joy. One rainy evening, Mara visited old Hargrove, the town's venerable storyteller. In the dim light of his study, lined with sepia-toned photographs and brittle manuscripts, Hargrove recounted the fable of the eternal tempest. "Once it begins," he rasped, his eyes glistening with both sorrow and resolve, "the storm will never cease. It will be a force that reshapes our world, unmooring us from the past and forcing us to face the truth that nothing is permanent. Mara left with a heavy heart and a determination to uncover the truth behind these ominous omens. Was it mere superstition, or did the legends hold a kernel of dread reality? Then came the first droplets, a gentle patter at midnight that soon escalated into a relentless drizzle. At first, the rain was a welcome respite for parched gardens and weary souls, but as the hours passed, it grew into a continuous symphony of water, echoing through empty streets and dark alleys. In the early morning light, Red Marsh awoke to find the town transformed. Puddles merged into streams, and every surface gleamed with an unyielding sheen of moisture. Mara ventured out with her camera and notepad, capturing images of the surreal scene. The rain did not abate. Instead, it persisted like a heartbeat, steady and unending. Neighbors gathered under awnings and doorways, their faces etched with disbelief and a growing dread. The once familiar town now resembled a world turned upside down, a mirror of a legend come to life. Within days, the rain intensified. The persistent downpour evolved into torrents that carved new channels through the cobblestone streets. Thunder rumbled without warning, and bolts of lightning illuminated the darkened sky as if igniting ancient memories. The townsfolk scrambled to salvage what they could, barricading homes and seeking refuge in churches and community halls. In the midst of the chaos, Mara discovered that the storm was not merely a meteorological anomaly. It seemed to be sentient, as though it carried with it the weight of centuries of grief and anger. At times, the rain would fall in a steady, almost rhythmic pattern. At others, it would lash out in violent bursts, tearing through the night with an intensity that defied reason. Amid this pandemonium, whispers began to circulate. A storm that once begun would never end. As the days bled into weeks, the unyielding storm reshaped the very fabric of Red Marsh. The townspeople adapted in ways both ingenious and heartbreaking. Makeshift shelters were erected in basements and attics, while community leaders organized round-the-clock efforts to maintain order amid the chaos. Yet the psychological toll was immense. Hope became as scarce as clear skies, and the future was painted in shades of perpetual gray. Mara, determined to chronicle every moment of this unfolding tragedy, set up her headquarters in the Old Town Library. There she recorded interviews, took photographs, and wrote feverishly about the unending rain. Among her subjects was a grieving widow, Mrs. Abernathy, whose husband had been lost in a flood. With tear-filled eyes, the old woman confessed, "This storm, it takes more than just our belongings. It steals our memories, our connections to the past. It's as if the sky itself is mourning. In the midst of the ceaseless deluge, even the natural world appeared to be in mourning. Trees bowed under the weight of waterlogged leaves, and the once bustling market square became a somber tableau of abandoned stalls and echoing footsteps. Every day brought the same relentless rhythm, a never-ending, sorrowful dirge composed by the elements." Unable to accept the seemingly eternal punishment, Mara resolved to search for the origin of the storm. She pored over ancient texts in the town's modest archives, seeking clues that might explain the phenomenon. In a crumbling leather-bound volume, she found references to a long-forgotten ritual, a sacrificial rite performed by a despondent sorcerer after a betrayal that left him heartless and bitter. The text described a curse that, once invoked, would shroud the land in an everlasting storm until the sorrow that birthed it was somehow reconciled. Armed with this knowledge, Mara sought the wisdom of Professor Linus Gray, a reclusive historian known for his expertise in local legends. In his cluttered study filled with relics and faded maps, the professor confirmed her suspicions. The curse, he explained in a trembling voice, was meant as a punishment, a ceaseless reminder of the transgressions of the past. But curses, like storms, are not immutable. There may be a way to appease the spirit of the sorcerer, if one could only find the relic of his shattered heart. Thus began Mara's perilous quest, a journey into the dark, forgotten corners of Red Marsh and beyond. With only her resolve, a small team of brave volunteers, and a map pieced together from cryptic clues, she set off into the wilderness, determined to retrieve the relic that might end the storm's eternal reign. Mara and her companions trekked through tangled forests and over treacherous hills, guided by the fragmented hints in ancient manuscripts. As they journeyed, the rain persisted relentlessly, blurring the boundaries between land and sky. Nights were spent huddled around makeshift fires, where tales of the storm were shared in whispers and hopeful prayers. Deep in the wilderness, in a forgotten glen hidden beneath a canopy of gnarled trees, they discovered a crumbling stone altar. On it lay a delicate, heart-shaped medallion, its surface etched with sorrowful symbols. The relic pulsed with a faint, ethereal glow, a heartbeat of the past that resonated with the storm above. Mara's hand trembled as she picked it up, feeling a surge of emotions that transcended time. It was as if the relic contained the very essence of the sorcerer's grief, a grief that had given birth to the tempest. As she cradled the medallion, visions of the past flooded her mind. A man betrayed, a love lost to cruelty, and a curse born of vengeance. In that moment, Mara understood that to break the storm, one must not only recover the relic, but also reconcile the pain that had set it free. Armed with the relic, Mara and her companions returned to Red Marsh, where the storm raged with unyielding fury. The town had grown gaunt and weary, its spirit nearly crushed under the weight of the eternal rain. In a final, desperate bid to end the curse, Mara convened a solemn gathering in the town square, a place that had once pulsed with life, but now lay submerged in sorrow and water. Under the watchful eyes of the townspeople, Mara stepped forward and held aloft the medallion. With trembling determination, she recited the incantation she had pieced together from ancient texts, a plea for forgiveness, a prayer for healing, and an acknowledgement of the pain that had been endured. As her voice soared above the drumming of the rain, the medallion began to glow brighter, its light piercing through the gloom like a shard of hope. For a moment the storm faltered, the wind hushed, the rain slowed to a gentle patter. In that fragile silence, the spirit of the sorcerer appeared, a spectral figure bathed in moonlight, his eyes brimming with centuries of sorrow. "Why do you seek to end my pain?" he whispered, his voice a mournful echo. "I am bound to this storm by the agony of betrayal and loss." Mara, tears streaming down her face, replied, "Your pain has become our curse. We have suffered under this endless tempest, and I offer you the chance to find peace. Let us heal together so that the storm may finally end." The air trembled with an ancient magic as the spirit considered her words. In that tense moment, the relic's glow intensified, and the sorcerer's spectral form wavered between wrath and relief. Slowly, his eyes softened, and he reached out as if to accept the offered redemption. The medallion shone like a beacon of hope, and in a brilliant flash of light, the sorcerer's spirit was drawn into it, his anguish dissolving into the relic. As the last vestiges of the sorcerer's torment were absorbed by the medallion, the storm began to subside. The relentless rain, which had for so long battered the town without pause, eased into a gentle, life-giving drizzle. The thunder receded to a distant murmur, and the oppressive darkness lifted from the skies. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Red Marsh saw the promise of clear skies and soft sunlight. The townspeople emerged from their shelters with cautious hope. Children danced in the puddles, and weary souls gazed upward with wonder as the clouds parted to reveal a tender blue horizon. Mara stood in the center of the square, the medallion still cradled in her hands, a symbol of sacrifice, redemption, and the possibility of renewal. Professor Gray, who had accompanied her on the quest, observed quietly, Curses may linger, but so can forgiveness. Today you have shown that even the darkest storm can be calmed by the light of understanding and the courage to forgive. In the weeks that followed, Red Marsh began the slow, painful process of rebuilding, not just its structures, but its very spirit. The eternal storm, once a relentless force of destruction, had given way to a gentle rain that nurtured the land and washed away memories of sorrow. Gardens began to bloom, and laughter slowly returned to the streets. The townspeople, now united by the shared experience of their ordeal, found strength in community and in the promise of a new dawn. Mara's story of the storm that lasted forever became a legend in its own right, a tale of sacrifice, redemption, and the transformative power of hope. She continued her work as a journalist and historian, preserving the lessons learned during those dark days. And every time the sky opened to reveal a radiant sunrise, the people of Red Marsh remembered the eternal tempest not as a curse, but as a turning point, a moment when the past was forgiven and the future was reclaimed. Years later, when the medallion was enshrined in the town's modest museum as a relic of hope and renewal, elders would recount the tale to wide-eyed children. They spoke of the storm that once raged without end, the brave soul who dared to seek the truth, and the ancient sorrow that was finally laid to rest. In quiet moments, as soft rain fell upon green fields and the scent of new life filled the air, the people of Red Marsh could almost hear the distant echo of a promise fulfilled. A reminder that even the fiercest storm can give way to the light of a new day. Thus, the legend of the eternal storm lived on, a story not only of nature's wrath, but of the human spirit's capacity to heal, forgive, and transform. And in every drop of rain that fell on Red Marsh, there was the quiet whisper of hope, a promise that as long as hearts remained open to change, no storm would ever truly last forever.